Today, my special guest on the podcast, I am so excited to have him here, Ash Avildsen. Sumerian Records, Sumerian Films, the new movie, Queen of the Ring, is out today in theaters everywhere. It's so great to have you.
Oh, thanks for coming in, man. I appreciate you having me.
Dude, it's awesome to have you. This guy has moved mountains and rock. You've done so much in rock and metal, and now you're really killing it in the film world. Tell me about this new film, Queen of the Ring, and kind of how it came together.
It's based on a book called The Queen of the Ring. So the only difference is the, by Jeff Lean, who's also from DC, where I grew up. He was an investigative journalist for the Washington Post, and he actually won a Pulitzer Prize on things connected in the narcos world for investigative journalism. But he wrote this book, which is really the reason I was even able to make the movie, because he did such a great job of just finding all of this, like, lost in the sands of time information about Mildred Burke and the golden era of women's wrestling, which as a diehard fan, I didn't know that. I called Jim Ross, good old JR, to work on a fictional 80s like love letter to the golden era of men's wrestling. And I asked him if he'd work on it with me to make it as authentic as possible. And because, you know, he's JR.
Of course.
He said, yeah, but by the way, have you heard of Mildred Burke? I said, no, who's that? And he said, I should check out this book, Queen of the Ring. I feel like it should be a movie. So I got it that weekend, read it in 2 days. I called him back on Monday. I was like, dude, forget about the 80s fictional thing. We have to tell her story. This is incredible. And yeah, I just became totally enchanted with that world of wrestling, and specifically her story, like small town single mother. Women's wrestling was illegal almost all over America. So they had to find places to do it, almost like Swing Kids. If you ever saw that movie, like they're trying to find places where they can dance because the dance is illegal, style of music. So yeah, it's a fascinating world, man.
Did you grow up as a wrestling fan like I did?
Die hard. Actually, here in New York, Madison Square Garden, I was actually here for court stuff with my mother about things with my dad, and she comes to me and she goes, hey, I got you tickets to see Ultimate Warrior Night against The Undertaker. And this wasn't an angle on television. And I was like, that's like, oh, come on, what are you talking about, Mom?
No way.
I wouldn't know about that. She's just confused. She's just parents being confused. And she goes, no, look, it says it's a body bag match right there in the newspaper. And I go, oh my God, it was real. So I went to the match, and sure enough, it was Taker versus Warrior body bag match. And that's when I fell in love with the behind the scenes, because it was a house show. And I didn't realize that they were still working throughout the week. Right. It wasn't on television. And so at a very young age, I became fascinated with how it all works. And then from there, and every Dark Side of the Ring episode later, here we are.
Dude, Dark Side of the Ring is a hell of a series. You could make that series.
Dark Side of the Rock. I mean, I love Dark Side of the Ring. Obviously, they take liberties like any, journalism or docs do, but it's very entertaining, episodic television.
You mentioned your father, and your father was an iconic director. Obviously, he directed Rocky, Karate Kid, numerous other amazing films. And, I see this kind of thing out there where people feel as though maybe your dad pushed you into directing
Nepo
a movie.
Baby.
But that's a big, Nepo baby. That's a big misconception about you.
Yeah, so it's been a thing my whole career in music. When I started booking shows in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and I started booking bigger bands because the agents and the bands were like, "Oh yeah, this kid Ash, he's putting on good shows," and like Mildred, trying to find places where she could actually have women's matches. I had to find venues that would be all ages and also allow moshing and slam dancing, because you can't have a metal or hardcore show without that. And so I was going to these bars and restaurants and Legion halls and fire halls and VFWs and Italian restaurants, Verona's and Manassas, if anyone remembers, but floor shows. But so I started having momentum as a indie promoter, and kids would go on this message board. This was the first time I experienced the false Nepo thing. It was called fear.com, P-H-E-E-R. And they'd go on this site and they'd say, oh, the only reason he's booking those bands is because of who his dad is. And I was like, first off, I've never met my father. And second off, he's got nothing to do with the fucking music business.
Right.
And he didn't have a very good publicist, as a director, because most people don't know the last name unless they're a diehard cinephile, and they don't know the same guy directed Rocky, directed The Karate Kid. So my whole career, it's haunted me. You know, still to this day, people go in the comments and they go, "Oh, he's just spending his dad's money and da da da." So I'll share something with you, you know, just to get raw and real with it. So when I was here for that Taker trip, it's actually, I don't know if it was specifically that trip, but it was here in New York. I was 12 years old, so I'd have to look at the timeline, but it might have been. But I was here, I was 12. Actually, yeah, I think it was, because I was 90. I'm going to look up if that was the trip. I think it was. Anyway, so I started going to a military school at a very young age, co-ed in Virginia. It's called Randolph-Macon Junior ROTC Air Force. And the first year, my family all pulled money together to send me there, because I started getting into trouble in the 6th grade. And it's actually something that's swept under the rug in this country, but boys that grow up without fathers are like 65 to 70+% more likely to leave a life of crime, poverty, violence, drugs. And if they don't, a lot of times they become overachievers because they have a chip on their shoulder about the world that they had rejection from their father, right?
Yep.
So I got sent to military school. My family puts all this money together for the first year of tuition, but then we run out. So I grew up in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in Bethesda, Maryland. I was the only kid in my elementary school that lived in an apartment. And so it was me, my brother, my mother, my aunt, my uncle, and my grandmother. Wow. We'd all line up for the bathroom, which is why I have a chip on my shoulder when people think I'm a Nepo baby. It's like, buddy, I fucking paid the dues.
Right.
You know? Anyway, so I come to New York with my mom for court. It was New York family court, because I basically had to testify why I think I should be able to go to this military school, because after the first year, my family didn't have any more money to pay for it. So my dad's there because he's testifying. I don't want to pay, you know, I don't have anything to do with this kid. And I'll never forget it, man. This was like, as my therapist says, the moment of annihilation. I'm sitting in the hallway waiting to go in to, you know, go into the court and talk. And my father is a little bit further away from me than you are, probably like 8 feet. And he's reading a newspaper like this. And I'm like 11, 12, whatever, seeing my dad for the first time. I look over at him. He never breaks looking. Goes into the courtroom. No eye contact. I don't see him again for 20 plus years.
Wow.
That was the first time I ever saw my dad in person.
Wow.
And it was, you know, it's one of those things that just sticks with you your whole life. Like I can remember the color of his socks. I remember how his legs were shaped. He had the glasses on down, reading the newspaper. It's one of those, you know, specific photographs in your mind. And, yeah, it was fucking crazy, man. And then the next time I saw him, this is another interesting, he was doing a Q&A. This was like after Sumerian was successful and I was, living in Los Angeles and everything. He was doing a Q&A for 2 films at an indie theater that were before Rocky. So he's doing Save the Tiger and Joe. And I showed up with a group of my good friends at the time. I think Lorenzo was with me, JJ, I believe Sean was with me, my ex-girlfriend at the time. And I was like, oh, my dad's going to be here. My half-sister, Bridget, if you're out there, I love you.
Showing up unannounced?
So I show up in the back of the theater to ask a question. He doesn't know it's me.
Whoa.
And he's taking questions from the audience. And he made a movie called The Power of One that I actually loved. It was Stephen Dorff, Morgan Freeman, took place in South Africa, apartheid era, years ago, like, you know, Nazi Germany's involved. And I asked him, like, hey, I really love The Power of One, but I noticed that was, you know, like a box office, you know, bomb. And I asked him why he felt that was, because he had a great cast and he was a big name director. It had a wide release. And he goes, well, the first thing was that, you know, it's Friday night. He goes, hey, honey, do you want to, you know, go see the movie about apartheid? He goes, it's a tough sell. And then he goes, the second thing is they had this great soundtrack, but they waited a long time before putting it out instead of putting it out prior to the release, which is one of the reasons I'm making sure that the great Corey Taylor and Bad Omens duet.
Yes.
There's music. We have Kitty.
Kitty rules.
Pretty Wild and Diamante coming out. So we have all these songs. I remember that from that question to my father. But then I had a full panic attack. You know, my girlfriend's rubbing ice on my neck to try and calm me down. I go into the popcorn area, and you know, I'm having the heart palpitations because it's just so psychologically fucking crazy. Because he doesn't know it's me, and I asked the question. And then, you know, this was a time when I was suffering badly from like panic disorder. I wouldn't have panic attacks going into like a high intense meeting. I was actually more calm in big intense meetings with executives and people and artists, or whatever. It's when I would be like waiting in line at Chipotle or something, and I'd be like, "Oh, my heart's racing. Oh, I'm about to fucking die," because it just feels like it's racing, like running full speed on a. This is a lot of subconscious shit in my 30s before meeting my father, but I started having one at this movie theater, which I think was obviously triggered emotionally by what I was experiencing. And they were so nice. They came and they brought me a soda. They're like, anything we can do. And just telling like the popcorn seller guy, like what was going on made me feel better, which again, it goes to like, that's why therapy's good, man.
100%.
You need to share these things.
Absolutely.
Even having this conversation with you is still cathartic to me as a little boy. But anyway, so that was the next time I saw him out. There was a long explanation. That was the next time I saw him after that time in court. And he still didn't know it was me. But I did end up meeting him years later, and we became the best of friends. And we started actually reading this book, Queen of the Ring, together, and went to dinner with Jim Ross at Soho, LA. And he loved the story. And we both read the book separately. And we're like, let's mark down our favorite lines and our favorite scenes to compare. You know, like if hey, we got 28 songs on the album, everyone go into a room and mark down your favorite songs, right? Like see if we all kind of line up with what we think the best songs are. And it was the best scenes. And we had such simpatico with what we both selected independently, which was really cool.
It's amazing. I heard a statistic from someone in the context of the NFL, which is that no Super Bowl champion quarterback that has ever won the game has done so without a father present in their life. So
say that again?
So there is a statistic in the NFL that says that every Super Bowl champion quarterback had the presence of a father in their life. It's crazy. Shit. I heard that. So we'll have to fact check that, but that's what I've heard, and it's always stuck with me. I was fortunate to have a great father, but I know a lot of people that didn't, and I just really empathize with people. And I feel like with you, the success that you've had, which is just, we could sit here all day and talk about the bands you've broken in rock. I mean, even right now, Bad Omens. I want to ask you, like, back when you started Sumerian, how much of that was, you know, I want to do something in entertainment on the level of like what my father is doing or was doing?
It was never so much about him as an individual as it was that I loved music and I knew it was something I wanted to do. At the time I was, you know, playing in bands and learning the business. But I just loved music. I loved heavy metal, hard rock, hardcore, punk, all of it. I just loved all those different, you know, like colors of the rock and roll rainbow.
Who were you into growing up?
Who was I into growing up as far as music?
Yeah.
So the first two bands when I was really young was Guns N' Roses and Skid Row, and GNR stuck with me my whole life, and then of course Metallica. So it was pretty easy, and I did love Bon Jovi as a young boy, and then I got into Rancid, the first two records, and of course Out Come the Wolves came in after that. And then I was, you know, head over heels, but I got into, you know, the music that I could discover at the time because it was hard, and then grunge came. I remember exactly what I was doing the first time the Smells Like Teen Spirit video here. I'm not going to pretend like I was into the Bleach record before. I didn't know Sub Pop. I was too young. But I remember it was just so impactful, which is a testament to the power of song and video together. I remember exactly what I was doing. I was in a BBS, the old school days of modem, and I was talking to the sysop in the split screen chat. And I said, oh my God, turn on MTV. Look at this guy with the blonde hair and the fucking cheerleader and the janitor, and he's got this torn up sweater. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I literally remember I was still in the apartment in Bethesda, and I just couldn't fucking believe it. And then I fell in love with grunge. All of them, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, everybody.
Sumerian as an independent label, I have so much respect for that because in a world, it's like, why even try? You know, why even try? This game is already kind of, in some ways, it's how I felt with Rockfeed, but you push forward and then you go on to have this super influential label to this day. Now you're also directing films. I don't know how you have enough time in the day, but who was the first band on Sumerian where you're like, oh my God, we really have a hit here? Was it Asking Alexandria that like really took off?
Asking was the first. I mean, I was grateful that we started with the Faceless and Stick to Your Guns because they were both doing great on the underground and both underground genres of music, but obviously an Orange County hardcore band and like a tech death prog metal band are very different musically, but
less
they were
successful.
still both, you know, underground. And back then it was, MySpace changed it, but it was still kind of this like secret society if you knew about underground metal and underground hardcore. It wasn't, you had to know from a friend, see a flyer. And then MySpace blew it wide open, which I'm so grateful for because without MySpace, Sumerian wouldn't have grown at the extent and the kind of velocity we had, you know, because it was the first really like peer-to-peer digital discovery on steroids. Like it was just...
At your core, before you started the label, you were just a computer whiz.
Not really. My brother was a computer whiz. I was a liberal arts kid, but I was really into the internet.
Yeah.
And I was into like, you know, the gaming world online, and there was like a...
So you're able to, though, when MySpace comes out, you're ready for that because you're into the internet. You're able to... It's like these big companies don't always understand the emerging trends in technology and they're way behind, but you were on it and you break these bands on MySpace. It's so interesting.
Dude, I remember we were on tour. So, you know, Toasted from Animals to Leaders, my guitar player, and we were on tour. We did really good in these like secondary, tertiary markets because those were the places it was easier for me to book and like build in. So like Tallahassee, we crushed, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Pensacola, Panama City area, that whole area.
Wow.
And we were in the panhandle of Florida, and we're staying at, you know, fan's house because back then, like, hey, you know, someone let us crash at your place. You have the sign at the merch table. You're just like, oh, let's, you know, a fan will put us up. We're staying at this fan's house, and he's on MySpace. He's like, you guys need to get on here. We're like, what is it? And he's like, yeah, it's like you put your whole like, you know, world on this web page, and you can show like your whole life, and you update it every day about what you're doing and who you're with. And I remember me and Tosa looking at each other like, wait, so you just put your whole life on the internet for everyone to see? Who the fuck would want to do that? You know what I mean? It was just like, that's a terrible idea. Like, no, thank you. And we would clown on MySpace. We'd be like, it's fucking MySpace kid.
Right.
You know? Because at that point, we were already like 23, 24, 22, but we were like, you know, past 21. And these were like the 18 to 20-year-olds that were like, no, this is where it's supposed to be. And I'll never forget, man, we fucking launched a MySpace page and the plays and the followers and we launched our merch site on it. And we were selling so much merch. My best friend back in Virginia, I'm like, dude, you got to like deal with this. Like we just put it up and it was like explosive. And from that day, I was just like, this is it. Like, I didn't know we had all these fans and we could make all this money just direct to the fans because they had a platform to do it on, which was MySpace. And it totally changed everything. You know, I was still to this day the most powerful platform in the internet era of like breaking music, in my opinion. Now TikTok's big. Instagram obviously helps. There's playlisting and stuff, but I don't know that anything had the magnitude of the way MySpace did it at its peak.
I agree. And I think they prominently featured that music player and it was just totally music centric. And even TikTok, you know, they've done a great job with breaking so many bands. You know, they've helped a lot with Bad Omens, but like in terms of that MySpace era, I tend to agree. It was really, and then Tom just like kind of secured the bag and rode off into the sunset and is a photographer now.
I know. We live in this era with all these like, you know, like tech tycoons who are becoming these larger than life figures. And like Tom was just like 500 mil.
He was real.
He got $4 billion. He's like 500 mil. I'm good. I'm out.
He was a real one. You know, He really was.
He's the guy that sold Instagram for $1 billion, which was like the deal of the century.
Oh, I don't know.
I haven't heard much of that guy either. I don't even know who it is.
Yeah.
He's probably chilling somewhere too.
Those guys, I mean, it's crazy. But, you know, you have Asking Alexandria. You've had so many huge artists.
Oh my God, that was your question.
Yeah. Like,
I'm terrible at just going on tangents.
No, you're fine.
Stream of consciousness.
I'm the same way, dude. I'm the same way.
Asking was the first. Once that took off, it was like That's what we really, and that, again, that was MySpace, but like, that was like, wow, like this.
They were so dangerous, you know, and it was so vulgar and rock and roll and wild and crazy. And it was like lightning in a bottle, man.
It really was. It really was. Yeah. And that was the first one when we really saw how explosive a band could be on a small indie label, and because of the power of the internet. And, you know, the thing that I wish these news sites would do is MySpace, you know, with TikTok, you really have to like hope people are using your song in their own videos and that you hit the algorithm. So it's not as kind of lean back
right.
of discovery. But with MySpace, like when you went to someone's page, it was like going into their bedroom. It's like, This is their theme song. These are their top bands and friends. There was so much front-facing personality, and no one's ever really recreated that.
Yep, agreed.
But that really was like the best, because you just got so much personality from someone just from looking at their page. You didn't have to like go through a bunch of videos or anything. You just said, here I am, you know?
They had us coding HTML when I was a teenager. I had to get my, like, it would like crash your computer. People would have so much code in their,
These young kids, they don't know how easy they have. You just post a photo or a video and you edit it in the app.
You had to learn HTML and shit to have your MySpace profile. So with bands like, so I just want to ask you this, because I'm a huge fan of Bad Omens. Like, how did they come on your radar? How did that relationship start there?
Actually, my best friend, who I've known for the longest time in the music business, one of the oldest, he actually was my friend who I called. I was like, dude, I need help with this merch. I'll pay you a percentage of each shirt, like just ship all this stuff. He was, again, I'll say his name. I'll ask him if he cares if his name's up there. His name is Jason Malhoit. He was also the original manager of Logic. He's had a great ear.
Oh, wow.
Finger on the pulse. But he was also from my same area in Virginia, and he started as a local band that I was booking at the place called the Sterling Ruerton, which I didn't even know what a Ruerton was, but it was another one of these type of like Legion Hall. You rent it out, you can sell your own food and put on a show. And he was always so great with just promoting, and he was very popular in the local scene. And we just, you know, became the best of friends, and he brought them to me, you know, early on, like when they had just started. I don't even know if they had played a show yet or not.
And they're also from Virginia originally.
Yeah, so they were all hanging out in Richmond, and they moved to Los Angeles together, and they really had this like kind of, you know, incredible bond and a very, you know, DIY mentality of like, look, we know this world of music. We believe we have black belts in it, and let's just figure out how to get it off the ground. And you know, we did the best we could, like getting it out there. And there's a lot of doubters, man.
And then to see the growth, especially over the last couple of years, now they're opening for Linkin Park, you know, stuff like that is just crazy. And it's great to see, because we need that. And another thing, you know, you've never gotten your props for, but people don't realize that major labels for a long time, and even in some ways continue today, like they stopped investing in rock.
Yeah,
we would have had just Imagine Dragons and Maroon 5. You were always pushing the bands in rock, investing in the genre. Very few other people were, you know, there's some other labels out there, but if there aren't people that are independent label and entrepreneur folks pushing, this genre will just go away, because the major labels still are just generally disinterested in rock music. That's very real, and it's a serious problem. And so,
and they want immediate returns, which is a big challenge, because you can have like a song go so viral in like the pop world, and the labels, you know, they're not worried about tickets and t-shirts and the whole thing. They're just like, cool, we have streaming, this song's big. I mean, they even do deals with it. They're just signing for a few songs. It's not even for like multiple albums. But with rock, as you know, like you have to build it. Like Bad Omens broke on the third album.
Yes.
We started showing some signs of life on you know, 1 and 2, but it wasn't like profitable yet. We continually invested into them. And then on the third, they broke it wide open. So a lot of times it can take the third, fourth, fifth plus record. I mean, who was it? The Black Keys? And was it the 7th album? I don't remember, but it was like much later on. Sometimes you can break, you know, sometimes you have an appetite for destruction.
Right.
But a lot of times, you know, you don't. And
you've got Poppy as well. I mean, she's really taken off, and she's someone too kind of early on. I mean, she was huge on YouTube, always has been, but musically, you know, her stuff over the last couple of years, her latest album I thought was fantastic. And, you know, interestingly enough, I don't know if you had anything to do with this, but her song being the theme song of Elimination Chamber when Cena turns heel is pretty freaking crazy. Speaking about wrestling.
Yeah. So I always push WWE for our music. They are a fan of Poppy. I actually ran into Jonathan Hammer, who's a fan of Poppy, at the Soho House in Nashville, and didn't have the Elimination Chamber song. And again, I'm not taking credit specifically for it happening. I'm just sharing a fun little moment. But he was eating, and I was like, you know, the national premiere of Queen of the Ring is in a few days. We'd be in town. He's like, no, I'm not going to be here. But I was like, Elimination Chamber, man, what's the deal? He goes, well, you know, we're still going through the theme song. WWE wants us to change genres, but he's like a rocker like us. And I'm like, dude, the song's called New Way Out. It just went top 10 at rock.
Yes.
Come on. So I was constantly like, hey, but I'm not personally taking credit for it happening. It's a perfect storm. Triple H is a fan. Poppy's having a huge moment.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hammer is a fan. And, you know, and that's kind of symbolic to like an artist being successful anyway. You know, sometimes you might be able to do everything on your own, but chances are most of the most successful artists, they've had an agent, a manager, a record label, the whole thing, right? And so I always tell artists that are doing well on their own, like, you don't need to sign to a label. You can be in control of your own destiny, and you might already be streaming well on your own. You don't have to listen to anyone else's opinions or anything. However, if you're playing the odds and you want, you know, world domination and be the biggest band you can, the odds are you'll have a much better chance of achieving your goals if you have a full-on record company working to help amplify your vision and your art.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, but, you know, I would be more biased in favor of an independent label like Sumerian as opposed to a major where there's so much turnover and stuff like that. I don't know if you can share anything about this, so if you can't, forgive me, but, you know, there's a lot of buzz, a lot of people wondering what's the status of Mayhem Fest. Is there anything happening with that? Is there anything you can share?
Yeah, I could share that it's called Miss Mayhem.
Ooh.
And it's all female.
Really?
They basically told one act, I'm looking at the text right now. Yeah, it's in the rigmarole of like, okay, this production in this, can we get, you know, it's all kind of at this stage of them trying to find out if everything they have from Live Nation for production is going to make it possible, because it's so expensive. We're touring now, but hopefully by the time this comes out, because it's
Friday,
yeah,
release day.
We'll either have a tour and all the acts will be done because it's all set up to be an all-female fronted bill.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And we have, you know, 7 of the 8 acts, but this 8th act, who's higher up at the bill, we need to make sure that it lands, so it's a co-headline and all this stuff. So, yeah, hopefully, you know, between then and now, we're supposed to have an answer today. But
that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's some breaking news.
Here on the Rock.
We never talked about this. Yes. Dude, that is sick. And it's interesting, you know, you're doing an all-female, but also the story of Mildred Burke, you know, where I think it's so fascinating that as a single mom, you know, she's able to go into the wrestling, and I haven't seen the movie yet, I'm going to see it here in a couple hours, but she's able to go into the wrestling world and do that while being a single mom. And then while facing the obstacles that you had to face back then in that industry, that's extraordinary.
Yeah. You know, for a few reasons, right? Like, first off, moms back then, you were a mom.
Yeah.
You didn't try. You're not an executive running a company. You're not an athlete.
They weren't in the workplace really back then.
Yeah. It was very slim pickings, which we established pretty quickly in one of the opening scenes when she's asking her mom, do you know any career women, Ma? You know, how long has Marlene been working here? One of the waitresses there that's been there like her whole life. So it was hard enough for a mom. And then to be a single mother was even, you know, the odds are just stacked against you. And then on top of that, back then it was unheard of for women to be considered glamorous and you know, pretty and sexy with also having muscle. Now it's very in vogue. You know, you have the whole muscle mommy craze and everyone's like, you know, beautiful women with beautiful, you know, defined bodies, muscular definition.
Yep.
But back then you were like a freak show. And Mildred wasn't just like some tomboy. She wanted to be glitzy and glamorous, but also show that, this can coexist with being strong and having a great physique and taking, body definition seriously, and also being, an idolized, beautiful woman.
Right.
So she really put that on the map in pop culture in the U.S. anyway. And a lot of people say it was worldwide, but her career was so much prior to the age of television that it's all kind of lost unless you read this book. Thank you, Jeff Lean. It was like I didn't know who she was, and none of my friends on any of my like pro wrestling group texts and all our little chats, no one fucking knew her, because it was actually a year before WWE put her into the Hall of Fame. When we started working on it, that hadn't even happened yet. So, yeah, it's wild.
Does any of your family, were able to talk to any of her like family or ancestors or anything?
Yeah, so we did a deal with the family directly as well.
I'm sure it means a lot to them you're doing this.
Oh man, I wish we would have filmed her granddaughter at the Newport Beach Film Festival premiere. We have some photos, but like she was just,
wow.
It was honestly, a video of the granddaughter seeing it for the first time probably would have sold more tickets than the trailer itself, because it was just one of those real moments that social media would go crazy for. Like,
the trailer blew up too, by the way. It's a fantastic trailer. I remember as soon as I saw it, I was like, damn, dude, this is really legit.
It's going well.
And to do it as an independent director, I mean, it's just crazy. I cannot say this enough, how much I respect people who do things independently. And there's just so much. You're doing more with less, I would say, right? Like, you're not being spoon-fed everything. You've got to wear so many hats in both.
DIY till I die. Or till someone comes in and buys a minority stake, but lets me still...
Exactly. I
have no interest in selling a majority. What's the point of that?
Could you have a boss and listen to them? Do you think you're the type of person?
Yeah, if WWE wanted to bring me in as a writer, I'll take orders from someone else, or if like HBO or like some brand that I love was like, hey, we're going to let you produce or write or acquire and direct.
You think you could write crazy storylines in WWE?
Oh,
what did you think of Cena's heel turn?
I thought it was great. I thought it could even happen sooner, but I thought it was great. I mean, I think it's the best one,
Since Hogan, maybe?
Yeah, I think for cultural significance it is, because John Cena has cracked into pop culture because of his acting career, and also just being a huge, WWE superstar, the way that Hulk Hogan did. So like the average pedestrian who doesn't watch Raw would be like, wait, like Cena became a bad guy. And then there's all these young kids that are devastated. It creates that cultural moment. So I think it was really, really smart.
I hope, and from an angle perspective,
shave the head. He should just go full like
get a goatee. He needs a bad guy goatee.
Yeah.
The Hogan turn, which I watched live as a kid, seeing people throwing beer cans and stuff, like they were really upset at Hogan. And
that one guy ran into the ring and also
which, like, looking back, like, you imagine how embarrassing that must be. Like, I thought it was so real. But yeah, Cena turning heel, and I think the new ownership of WWE has actually done a pretty good job. I didn't think they would, but I'm a big UFC fan and same parent company, so I thought they've done a pretty good job. But wrestling is just so. I feel like wrestling and rock go hand in hand, and that's why your soundtrack is so cool. Where we got Corey Taylor, Bad Omens on the soundtrack. Kitty, I don't know if there's anyone else, but I love Kitty. Also, the other band that's on that just kind of just came out.
The Pretty Wild.
The Pretty Wild is sick, dude.
Yeah,
they're good.
Two sisters, and they're very committed. One of the things I look at when deciding to sign an artist is just like, how bad do they want it?
Yep.
We've come across some really talented artists who have a lot of momentum online, but like they're very complacent, just kind of like sitting on the couch and counting likes. And man, look, I'm streaming. I don't need to do anything. Versus like, do you want to live on the road? Do you want to headline Download Festival one day? Like, how bad do you want the glory?
Right.
That's one of the things about Mildred's story that just I fell in love with it. She was just so resilient. Like when you see in the movie, like you can't even believe all of the obstacles she goes through, and it's not even that she gets past them, but tolerates them in order to achieve her agreement. A lot of them she, breaks through, but like just that resilience, man, it's like, and it's not something you can teach. You either like have that in you and you want something bad enough or you don't. And that's a big factor when signing artists. And with the Pretty Wild, they hadn't done a lot of touring and shows yet. So I was hesitant, but then after meeting them and just feeling their energy and how tenacious and committed they are, and hearing their story, their backstory. You know, another thing when talking to artists, like before signing them, like I want to know who the person is, right? Like, okay, great, you have some great music, you got some hype, but like, where'd you grow up? What's the story with your mom and dad? Like, what's the story with your siblings? Like, what were the big moments in your life leading up to this?
Yes.
You know, both traumatic and positive. All that stuff helps set a foundation for who you're really getting into business with. Because when you sign with a label, this is back to what you said about the major labels and the turnover. You know, a lot of times at a major label, you sign, you got all these people in the room, and then next thing you know, there's a new CEO or president, they're all gone, and some kid that was working at Petco last week's telling you why track 7 is a single. That's a real thing.
It's real. It's so real.
Slipknot actually said the Petco last week thing. So I give credit to Sean for that. But this happened to me with American Satan and Miramax. I grew up loving Miramax, right? It was my favorite like indie film brand. They were it. They're kind of like what A24 and Neon is today for kids. And so I was like, oh my God, Miramax is going to distribute American Satan. This is my dream. And I go into this meeting and there's all these people in there. They're like, we love this. Boom, boom, boom. It's just like a label. And I'm the artist. And they're like, we're going to do all these things. And I'm like, great, sign on the dotted line. Take all the rights. Boom, I do the deal. And then 4 days later, there's a new CEO, Bill Block, who I don't even think he's at the company anymore, but he was there for years. He comes in, fucking gets rid of everyone except one person. Everyone else is gone. The 18 people that I had this connection with, all gone. And now I'm floating going, wow, all these people that I thought I was working on, they're all gone. This is how an artist feels when they signed to Roadrunner and then everyone's gone. They're like, what the hell? Where'd my team go? And I was like, well, at least the saving grace is that it's still Miramax. So I can wear my Miramax shirt and be like, yeah, I'm going to go to the gym. I got my Miramax shirt and hat. And I shit you not. This is like total Curb Your Enthusiasm. Well, fucking the next day, Harvey Weinstein fucking gets out.
Oh my God.
And then I'm like, I can't even wear a Miramax shirt around LA. I'm going to look like a fucking asshole.
The brand is destroyed.
So I'm like, great. Not only did they wipe out my whole team, but now the Miramax brand's tarnished. And, you know, luckily I think, you know, Miramax transcends Weinstein. So like, that went away after a while. You could still wear a Miramax shirt, but for months and months and months, I was like, I can't wear a Miramax shirt. Like, this is the biggest story in Hollywood. Like, so it was just adding insult to injury. But that's one of the nice things about signing to an indie. Like, one of the things I pride myself with Sumerian is, look, you're in business with me. Like, it's me. I'm a human being. You got my cell number.
Yeah.
You can text me. You got some crazy idea in the middle of the night. Let's try and execute it by the morning. Like, there's that human personal connection, which is really the foundation of when I started. It was the by artist for artist. And I know that's kind of like a cliche line, but that's
you really were in a band. You really were a musician before this.
And when I saw when me and Tosin were touring around and we had, you know, Animosity and the Faceless and all these bands opening for us, we just realized like, man, like a lot of these labels, they're not like living it in the van and they're not seeing this new era of heavy music the way we saw it. And so they were either off. I never wanted to be a label guy. This was never fucking part of my rock and roll high school fantasy, okay? I was never supposed to be the label boss. I didn't want to be the record executive. How many records you gonna sell me, you little prick? I was never the script, man. I was supposed to be the fucking rock star, but I realized I couldn't sing in key the way, I listened to like a live or Just Breathing. I'm like, well, that's the bar now. I can't fucking nail those notes like Jesse Leach can. I was like, I'm cooked. This is it. And I was good at screaming and writing the songs, but I didn't want to have to scream the whole time. And I was just like, if I can't sing like the best of them, fuck it. I'll be in 20 bands at once and I'll use what I've learned from the business and help younger artists with that by starting a label. But yeah, that was never the plan. I just realized these other labels were either offering these really draconian deals. Like we started off doing 50-50 net split deals. They were offering really draconian deals or they just didn't get it.
Yep. The 360 deals came out, I don't know how long ago, but the industry has changed so much. And I really, to be honest, I don't know a lot about like how these deals are structured. I just know that a lot of people are very dissatisfied, with stuff they get. But I do think it's so important that a lot of artists that come into the game, they really don't have a lot of knowledge about marketing and things like that. And they benefit greatly from having that in a label that understands. Now, when it comes to making a movie, how many years have you spent working on this film, Queen of the Ring?
Lost count. And not from shooting it, right? We shot it 30 days, principal photography, which I'm very proud of. And we cut out so many scenes just to get the runtime down. So a lot of times movies will have to go do reshoots. They'll have to do pickup days. They have to do a lot of more things after they've edited and figured it out. And while, you know, like any art, you can always say, oh, I've had more time, I can make it better. But like, we shot everything, we got it all in the can. So I never had to call the actors back to do anything. So that's really great. So it was 30 days of actually filming it. But, you know, it was years of getting the book. And going back to what you're asking about my relationship with the family, one of the things I did when I asked them to, you know, let me have the life rights to her, and I got the rights from the author to the book, is I said, look, normally people just get an option. You know, they give them a small amount of money. They say, I'm going to option the rights to the book. But then they still go and try and figure out how they're going to get it made. And then they do another agreement after that, like a purchase agreement. I said, look, I'm just going to buy it right now. And I'm going to tell you that in 5 years, if I can't get it made, you get all the rights back and you keep the money. And I did that mainly, one, to show that how much I respected the family and the story, but also a lot of it was for myself to be like, hey, I'm going to hold my own ass to the
Smart.
Yeah. I'm making a commitment that's going to get made. Because a lot of people say, in Hollywood, it's like, oh, I have this project and I have this slate and that's that, blah, 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 and fucking no one gets anything.
They never get it done.
You know, because, you know, and I'm just like, I'm going to take the book rights and the movie's going to happen while we're still young enough to and enjoy it. And even then, man, just life is always fleeting. The great-granddaughter, who there's 3 people that the film's dedicated to in memory of. The great-granddaughter of Mildred passed. She had this crazy, like, bone spinal, very obscure disease. I forgive me, I forget what it's called, but
Wow.
like, you know, they're kind of like elastic with their body movements. It was really sad, and she died very young. And Jim Ross's wife died. She in the biking accident, and my dad died.
Yep.
And I'm just like, God, like, this is why I just always try and motivate people, man. Just whatever you want to try and do, fucking do it. Be like, death is all around us.
Yes, it is.
Every day you like get to live and be happy. It's a fucking miracle, man.
Yes.
Especially now. It's like crazy.
And everybody thinks about life expectancy, but really you don't have the 80 or 70 years that you think you have. You have like 30 good years.
Well, that's what we call QTR.
Yeah.
Quality time remaining. Okay, you might live to 80, sure, but how many of those are quality years?
Yeah.
Where are you taking care of yourself? Do you have the ability to go do what you want to do? So yeah, QTR, man. It's hard to stack those points up.
Well, I got to tell you, I could sit here and talk to you for 5 hours, but he has a movie premiere to go
Yeah,
to.
I literally, they're texting me, I have to go.
Yeah, Ash, I really appreciate you doing this. You're a force in rock music, a force in the film industry, and it's an honor to have you on, hopefully the first of many occasions.
You're a brilliant journalist, man, and I really appreciate everything you do for the community, and you deserve all of the kudos you're getting. You're true independent media, and all the respect to you, sir.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.